Alright everyone, how you guys doing? Welcome to Apple Weekly number 56, the show where I cover everything Apple, broadcasting on both YouTube and iTunes. Before I get started, of course I've got to mention igear.com. Simple request, go onto the page, like it, favourite it, tweet it, follow us on YouTube and Twitter, and you'll be in for a surprise pretty soon because we're going to be doing some giveaways. You're most welcome to stay tuned to the social networks to find out more. Getting straight into the first story and kind of getting sickening of this whole iPad stuff, aren't we all? iPad 3, the centre or the place where it's being held, is being decorated as is every Apple event. It's the same place in San Francisco where the event is taking place. There's no word of any live web stream yet, but stay tuned. If there is, I will tweet it out, so make sure you're following me on Twitter. I hope there's a live stream so we don't have to, refresh loads of live web streams. It's just always better to watch the actual video stream, which is always pretty nice. When the event notifications went out, there was a lot of rumours saying there's not going to be a home button. Lo and behold, more parts have appeared over the last few hours, and clearly there is a home button. iPad 3 prices have also been confirmed. As you can see from the image on the screen, they are the same as the current ones. One of the things that I like about Apple stuff is when they bring out an E1, the prices do tend to stay the same, and for some of you guys outside the US, because of the currency fluctuations, the prices are going to drop, so fingers crossed we'll see our drop in prices here in the UK. Although that said, the iPad 2 prices are pretty decent. $399 is what it's going to cost you minimum, but obviously low is always a good thing in my books. The iPad 3 is widely rumoured to have a Retina display, a gorgeous screen, easy to read, and just a much more better resolution display all in all. Now the problem for the developer side of things is they don't get a heads up from Apple saying, hey, we're going to be releasing X, Y and Z tomorrow, so make sure your applications are ready. They pretty much find out the same time as the consumer finds out, in which they'll have to rush in order to kind of compete or put it out in the App Store, because if they're late, then they're late. So some of the bigger developers, i.e. Electronic Arts, are probably going to be on stage on the event because they've been working with Apple. Apple tends to do that with some of the famous applications, so if you're in the top 5 or top 3, Apple will give you a heads up and let you sign NDA and all these forms to say you won't leak anything out. So some developers were really annoyed, and specifically Ryan created this application called Retina Simulator, and as the name suggests, he's kind of hacked a few things, and it lets you see what it will look like, or what an application will look like in this gorgeous pixelation. Does that make sense? And as you can see, it is pretty crisp. Here is a screenshot. My oh my, isn't that gorgeous? And as Matthew says on Twitter, the better the display, the longer you will be sitting on the loo with your new shiny iPad 3. All in all, whatever happened with the iPad 3, it is going to be compatible with the iGear Vest, as is the case with the iPad 2, unless of course Apple are working on an 82-inch touchscreen like Microsoft announced at the Windows 8 customer preview. Is it me, or is Microsoft taking the absolute? So just a really short word on Windows 8 itself. Looks nice, looks gorgeous. It's probably going to be improvement over the previous Windows, but is it enough to make me switch from the Apple ecosystem? Most probably not. I think most people who are going to be upgrading to Windows 8 are those who are currently stuck with Windows. I doubt someone who has moved from Windows to Mac is going to go back to Windows 8. There are of course going to be certain people who do that, but I can't see the majority. I can't see myself going back to Windows 8, especially because the Mac and Line and Snow Leopard and everything, and the integration of all the iOS devices, it's always going to be better on the Mac side of things, so it's just not enough for me. But what are your views on Windows 8? Have you tested it out? Are you going to be going to Windows 8? Are you going to have a secondary machine for Windows 8? Let me know your comments in the comment section below. Apple is reportedly working on a 14-inch MacBook for the Asian market, to be specific. This is coming out of DigiTimes, who just release ridiculous kind of rumours saying the most ridiculous things, and when it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and they're kind of widely known for it. Here's my thing, why would they make a difference of 0.7 inch for the kind of Asian market. Sure, it's a very big market, and when you go to China, you see tons, and kind of Lenovo is kind of famous there and all these other brands. But Apple is really not known to, they've not done that with the iPhones, you know, and that's kind of how many millions, 100 million, I think it's about 500, 600 million, and they still haven't catered for them, never mind the kind of the laptop market. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it just doesn't make sense in just making a 0.7 inch kind of increase. Sure, they can get away with the 13.3 all in all and have a 14 inch across the board, but I can't see them focusing on one market and creating a dedicated piece of kind of device or whatever just for one kind of area. I would think they would do across the board, and that's one of the things Steve Jobs, when he came back into Apple, he kind of slashed the line, says there's too much confusion in the line, just scrap it all and just stick to the basics. So I personally can't see it happening. Would you like a 14 inch MacBook Air? To be honest, the 13.3 is fine, and I don't think I would notice much of a difference between a 13.3 and a 14, although I can see a difference between 13.3 and a 15 inch MacBook Pro. The Mac Pro, the Mac Pro, the Mac Pro hasn't been updated in 586 days. Good news, because it could be launching this week according to several sources. The chipsets have been in the distribution channels for a couple of weeks. As to the specifics of what kind of chipset they're using, what the speeds are, they will be revealed soon, because Intel hasn't lifted the embargo on it. Although there were a few leaks this week where Intel accidentally leaked the stuff out. Someone didn't get fired from their job. But the fact that Dell and all these other vendors have announced their high-end machines, so it only makes sense for Apple to kind of do the same. There's not going to be kind of a major event for it, it's just going to be a silent update, simply because the Mac Pro is not a consumer machine. So any of you out there waiting for a Mac Pro, leave it in the comments. What do you want to see from this machine? There is talks of moving away from AMD to nvidia, so hopefully good news on that front. It's going to be a beastly machine. It's not going to be for everyone, hence why there is no event. But I really hope that the Mac side of things do shine and not be killed off, as are the kind of rumours going around. They are slowly going to be, you know, killing off the high-end machines, one Mac at a time, starting from the Mac Pro. So if the Mac Pro doesn't get updated the next few weeks, it's probably going to be put to sleep, sadly. Before we go any further, I want to tell you about iGear. In fact, forget about me telling you, watch. Wasn't that cool? Can you do that with your jacket? Only if you have an iGear jacket. And last but not least, the Ivy Bridge chipsets, which are going to be used in the next iMacs, MacBook Pros, MacBook Airs. Widely rumoured, of course. We're on Sandy Bridge just now, so Ivy Bridge is the next Intel chipset. There were tons of rumours flying about that it's been delayed for a couple of weeks. 8 weeks is what some sources were quoting. But CNET eventually spoke to Intel, who said 8 weeks is totally inaccurate. They basically said there is a delay, so if Ivy Bridge chipset was being released in April, it's been pushed to May. So if the desktop versions of the Ivy Bridge chipsets were due in May, they're pushed forward to June, and you know, it's just 4 weeks delay, 3 to 4 weeks. It's not 8 weeks or 2 or 3 months as some people are saying. So yeah, it's going to add a couple of more weeks, but for those of you waiting, that wait is going to be well worth it, of course. And before I go, 2 apps of the week, which I forgot to do in the last 2 videos, and you guys have forgotten to tell me about it. The first one is for your iOS devices, called Bannerflow, and as the name suggests, you can have these cool funky text appearing on your iOS devices. Looks pretty cool, pulls up the atmosphere, doesn't it? And the next application is Snake. Don't we all remember Snake from the good old, I have dropped this, good old Nokia phones? Well, now you don't have to play it in your old 3210, you can play it on your Mac, and it's just endless fun. Guys, that is it for this week in Apple. Leave your comments. Remember, you can watch it on iTunes. Please, if you can rate it on iTunes, that would be great. And before you go, I would appreciate if you would check out iGear.com, like it, favourite it, tweet it. Heck, you know, rate this video as well, join me on Twitter, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers!